Yiddish is the historical language of the Ashkenazi Jews. It originated during the 9th century in Central Europe, providing the nascent Ashkenazi community with an extensive Germanic-based vernacular fused with elements taken from Hebrew and Aramaic, as well as from Slavic languages and traces of Romance languages. Yiddish is written with a fully vocalized alphabet based on the Hebrew script. The earliest surviving references date from the 12th century and call the language or a variant of Teuch, the contemporary name for Middle High German. In common usage, the language is called, distinguishing it from Hebrew and Aramaic, which are collectively termed. The term Yiddish did not become the most frequently used designation in the literature until the 18th century. In the late 19th and into the 20th century, the language was more commonly called Jewish, especially in non-Jewish contexts. But Yiddish is again the more common designation. Modern Yiddish has two major forms. Eastern Yiddish is far more common today. It includes Southeastern, Mideastern, and Northeastern dialects. Eastern Yiddish differs from Western both by its far greater size and by the extensive inclusion of words of Slavic origin. Western Yiddish is divided into Southwestern, Midwestern, and Northwestern dialects. Yiddish is used in a large number of Orthodox Jewish communities worldwide and is the first language of the home, school, and in many social settings among most Hasid Jews. Yiddish is also the academic language of the study of the Talmud according to the tradition of the Lithuanian yeshivas. The term Yiddish is also used in the adjectival sense, synonymously with Jewish, to designate attributes of Ashkenazi culture. Prior to the Holocaust, there were over 10 million speakers of Yiddish. 85% of the Jews who died in the Holocaust were Yiddish speakers, leading to a massive decline in the use of the language. Assimilation following World War II further decreased the use of Yiddish both among survivors and Yiddish speakers from other countries. However, the number of speakers is increasing in global Hasidic communities. Origins. The established view is that, as with other Jewish languages, Jews speaking distinct languages learned new co-territorial vernaculars, which they then Judaized. In the case of Yiddish, this scenario sees it as emerging when speakers of Judeo-French and Judeo-Romance languages began to acquire varieties of Middle High German, and from these groups the Ashkenazi community took shape. Exactly what German base lies behind the earliest form of Yiddish is disputed. In Weinreich's model, speakers of Old French or Old Italian, literate in Hebrew or Aramaic, migrated through southern Europe to settle in the Rhine Valley, in what in Yiddish was later known as Lothar, meaning Lotharingia, an area extending over parts of Germany and France, and that several German dialects were involved, where they encountered and were influenced by Jewish speakers of High German. Both he and Solomon Birnbaum developed this further in the mid-1950s. In Weinreich's view, this Old Yiddish substrate later bifurcated into two distinct versions of the language, a Western and Eastern Yiddish. They retained the Semitic vocabulary needed for religious purposes and created a Judeo-German form of speech, sometimes not accepted as a fully autonomous language. Recent linguistic research has finessed, contested or challenged the Weinreich model, in a variety of directions that provide alternative lines of approach to the origins of Yiddish. Some theorists argue that the fusion occurred with a Bavarian dialect base. The two main candidates for the germinal matrix of Yiddish, the Rhineland and Bavaria, are not necessarily incompatible. There may have been parallel developments in the two regions, seeding the Western and Eastern dialects of modern Yiddish. David Katz proposes that Yiddish emerged from contact between speakers of High German and Aramaic-speaking Jews from the Middle East. In 1991, Paul Wechsler proposed a highly heterodox model that took Yiddish, by which he means primarily Eastern Yiddish, not to be genetically grounded in a Germanic language, but rather as Judeo-Sorbian, whose vocabulary had been largely replaced by High German in the 9th to 12th centuries, when, according to his theory, Large numbers of German speakers settled in Sorbian and Polabian lands, and some of them, after converting, developed a Judeo-Slavic tongue which was subsequently relexified with Old High German. Wechsler's model has met with little academic support, and strong critical challenges, especially among historical linguists. Alternative theories recognize the massive extent of its Germanic vocabulary. The lines of development proposed by the different theories do not necessarily rule out the others. An article in the Jewish Daily Forward argues that, in the end, a new, standard theory of Yiddish's origins will probably be based on the work of Weinreich and his challenges are like history. By the 10th century, a distinctive Jewish culture had formed in Central Europe which came to be called Ashkenazi, from Ashkenaz, the medieval Hebrew name for Northern Europe and Germany. Ashkenaz was centered on the Rhineland and the Palatinate, in what is now the westernmost part of Germany. Its geographic extent did not coincide with the German principalities of the time, and it included northern France. Ashkenaz bordered on the area inhabited by another distinctive Jewish cultural group, the Sephardim or Spanish Jews, which ranged into southern France. Ashkenazi culture later spread into Eastern Europe with large-scale population migrations. Nothing is known with certainty about the vernacular of the earliest Jews in Germany, but several theories have been put forward. The first language of Ashkenazi Jews may, as noted above, have been Aramaic. The vernacular of the Jews in Roman-era Judea and ancient and early medieval Mesopotamia. The widespread use of Aramaic among the large non-Jewish Syrian trading population of the Roman provinces, including those in Europe, would have reinforced the use of Aramaic among Jews engaged in trade. In Roman times, many of the Jews living in Roman southern Italy appear to have been Greek speakers, and this is reflected in some Ashkenazi personal names. Hebrew, on the other hand, was regarded as a holy language reserved for ritual and spiritual purposes and not for common use. Much work needs to be done, though, to fully analyze the contributions of those languages to Yiddish. It is generally accepted that early Yiddish was likely to have contained elements from other languages of the Near Eastern Europe, absorbed through migrations. Since some settlers may have come via France and Italy, it is also likely that the Romance-based Jewish languages of those regions were represented. Traces remain in the contemporary Yiddish vocabulary. For example, from the Latin benedicere, from the Latin leger, and the personal names anshl, cognate to angel or angelo, bonum. Western Yiddish includes additional words of Latin derivation. For example, orn, cf. Latin and Italian, ore. The Jewish community in the Rhineland would have encountered the many dialects from which Standard German would emerge a few centuries later. In time, Jewish communities would have been speaking their own versions of these German dialects, mixed with linguistic elements that they themselves brought into the region, although not reflected in the spoken language. A main point of difference was the use of the Hebrew alphabet for the recording of the Germanic vernacular, which may have been adopted either because of the community's familiarity with the alphabet or to prevent the non-Jewish population from understanding the correspondence. In addition, there was probably widespread illiteracy in the non-Hebrew script, with the level of illiteracy in the non-Jewish communities being even higher. Another point of difference was the use of Hebrew and Aramaic words. These words and terms were used because of their familiarity, but more so because in most cases there were no equivalent terms in the vernacular which could express the Jewish concepts or describe the object's cultural significance. Written evidence. It is not known when the Yiddish writing system first developed, but the oldest surviving literary document using it is a blessing in the Worms Mazor, a Hebrew prayer book from 1272. This brief rhyme is decoratively embedded in an otherwise purely Hebrew text. Nonetheless, it indicates that the Yiddish of that day was a more or less regular Middle High German written in the Hebrew alphabet into which Hebrew words, Makhazer and Beis Aknases, had been included. The pointing appears as though it might have been added by a second scribe, in which case it may need to be dated separately and may not be indicative of the pronunciation of the rhyme at the time of its initial annotation. Over the course of the 14th and 15th centuries, songs and poems in Yiddish, and macaronic pieces in Hebrew and German, began to appear. These were collected in the late 15th century by Menahem ben Naphtali Oldendorf. During the same period, a tradition seems to have emerged of the Jewish communities adapting its own versions of German secular literature. The earliest Yiddish epic poem of this sort is the Dukeish Horant, which survives in the famous Cambridge Codex TS 10, K. 22. This 14th-century manuscript was discovered in the Geniza of the Cairo Synagogue in 1896. And also contains a collection of narrative poems on themes from the Hebrew Bible and the Haggadah. Printing. The advent of the printing press in the 16th century enabled the large-scale production of works, at a cheaper cost, some of which has survived. One particularly popular work was Elia Levitas' Bovabuk, composed around 1507–08 and printed in at least 40 editions, beginning in 1541. Levita, the earliest named Yiddish author, may also have written Paras und Vienne, another Yiddish retelling of a chivalric romance. Vidwilt presumably also dates from the 15th century, although the manuscripts are from the 16th. It is also known as Königgottes Hof, an adaptation of the Middle High German romance Wiggerluis by Wernher von Gravenberg. Another significant writer is Avraham ben Schemuel Picarte, who published a paraphrase on the Book of Job in 1557. Women in the Ashkenazi community were traditionally not literate in Hebrew, but did read and write Yiddish. A body of literature, therefore, developed for which women were a primary audience. This included secular works, such as the Bovabuk, and religious writing, specifically for women, such as the Zeniarino and the Tikines. One of the best-known early woman authors was Gluckel of Hameln, whose memoirs are still in print. The segmentation of the Yiddish readership, between women who read Mame Losh but not Loshkoidish, and men who read both, was significant enough that distinctive typefaces were used for each. The name commonly given to the semi-cursive form used exclusively for Yiddish was, with square Hebrew letters being reserved for text in that language and Aramaic. This distinction was retained in general typographic practice through to the early 19th century, with Yiddish books being set in Vebetish. An additional distinctive semi-cursive typeface was, and still is, used for rabbinical commentary on religious texts when Hebrew and Yiddish appear on the same page. This is commonly termed Rashi script, from the name of the most renowned early author, whose commentary is usually printed using this script. Secularization. The Western Yiddish dialect, sometimes pejoratively labeled Mauscheldeutsch, declined in the 18th century, as the Enlightenment and the Haskalah led to a view of Yiddish as a corrupt dialect. Owing to both assimilation to German and the revival of Hebrew, Western Yiddish survived only as a language of intimate family circles or of closely knit trade groups. In Eastern Europe, the response to these forces took the opposite direction, with Yiddish becoming the cohesive force in a secular culture. Notable Yiddish writers of the late 19th and early 20th centuries are Sholem Yankov Abramovich, writing as Mendel Mochesforim, Sholem Rabinovich, widely known as Sholem Aleichem, whose stories about inspired the Broadway musical and film Fiddler on the Roof, and Isaac Lee Peretz. 20th century. In the early 20th century, especially after the Socialist October Revolution in Russia, Yiddish was emerging as a major Eastern European language. Its rich literature was more widely published than ever, Yiddish theater and Yiddish film were booming, and it for a time achieved status as one of the official languages of the Ukrainian People's Republic, the Belarusian and the short-lived Galician SSR, and the Jewish Autonomous Oblast. Educational autonomy for Jews in several countries after World War I led to an increase in formal Yiddish language education. more uniform orthography, and to the 1925 founding of the Yiddish Scientific Institute, YIVO. In Vilna, there was debate over which language should take primacy, Hebrew or Yiddish. Yiddish changed significantly during the 20th century. Michael Wex writes, as increasing numbers of Yiddish speakers moved from the Slavic-speaking East to Western Europe and the Americas in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, they were so quick to jettison Slavic vocabulary that the most prominent Yiddish writers of the time, the founders of modern Yiddish literature, who were still living in Slavic-speaking countries, revised the printed editions of their oeuvres to eliminate obsolete and unnecessary slavisms. The vocabulary used in Israel absorbed many modern Hebrew words, and there was a similar but smaller increase in the English component of Yiddish in the United States and, to a lesser extent, the United Kingdom. This has resulted in some difficulty in communication between Yiddish speakers from Israel and those from other countries. Numbers of speakers. On the eve of World War II, there were 11 to 13 million Yiddish speakers. The Holocaust, however, led to a dramatic, sudden decline in the use of Yiddish, as the extensive Jewish communities, both secular and religious, that used Yiddish in their day-to-day life were largely destroyed. Around 5 million of those killed, 85% of the Jews who died in the Holocaust, were speakers of Yiddish. Although millions of Yiddish speakers survived the war, further assimilation in countries such as the United States and the Soviet Union, along with the strictly monolingual stance of the Zionist movement, led to a decline in the use of Eastern Yiddish. However, the number of speakers within the widely dispersed Orthodox communities is now increasing. Although used in various countries, Yiddish has attained official recognition as a minority language only in Moldova, Bosnia and Herzegovina, the Netherlands and Sweden. Reports of the number of current Yiddish speakers vary significantly. Ethnologue estimates, based on publications through 1991, that there were at that time 1.5 million speakers of Eastern Yiddish, of which 40% lived in Ukraine, 15% in Israel, and 10% in the United States. The Modern Language Association agrees with fewer than 200,000 in the United States. Western Yiddish is reported by Ethnologue to have had an ethnic population of 50,000 in 2000, and an undated speaking population of 5,000, mostly in Germany. A 1996 report by the Council of Europe estimates a worldwide Yiddish-speaking population of about 2 million. Further demographic information about the recent status of what is treated as an East and Western dialect continuum is provided in the YIVO Language and Cultural Atlas of Ashkenazic Jewry.